Hey everybody, Arthur at Gaming here, showing you off a couple of games I got here. So this is a quick video for my YouTube called Tournament of Camelot by Wizkids. See down the bottom, boom. And also Tournament of Avalon by Wizkids. You see I have some other games in the back there. I'm going to be doing some videos on them as well. So check out my YouTube for those later. So Tournament of Camelot, Tournament of Avalon are both card games. Not your traditional like deck builder game, more like actual traditional playing card games. The idea here is if you've played like spades or hearts, these will feel similar to you with like a medieval slash fantasy flair to them. So there are a couple different suits here. You see there is the suit of deception, arrows, alchemy, sorcery, and swords. Those are your 5 suits. And then there's a couple special cards of Merlin and the Sorcerer's Apprentice. So the idea is you are supposed to be knights, and you are fighting against other knights at the table. It's a game for 3 to 6 players. And you're not taking tricks, because if you take tricks, that is you taking damage. So low cards are bad. Low cards mean you take a trick probably if you play a 1. If you play like they're numbers 1 to 15. So like 11 of swords there. Let's see, there should be a 15 of swords in this pile right here. Looks like it's probably right here. If I could get it out with one hand, see there's a 15. So each suit has a 1 to 15. So no suit is different in that manner. Some of the cards also have these little blood splots on them. Those are poison. So at the end of each tournament round, you start with 400 health. You go down to 0 health. You have these cards. They're double-sided. You have 2 cards. They're double-sided, so you can track your health with a little heart token. You put it right on whatever health you're at. At the end of each round, you take whatever cards you took in the normal play. Everybody plays a card. You have to follow suit. If you can, lowest card takes the trick. And then each card is worth 5 points if it's just a normal card, 10 points if it is a blood card. And then the Merlin is worth 25 points, and the Sorcerer's Apprentice is worth 5 points. The special things about these two, so the Sorcerer's Apprentice, this one says, assign any suit and value to this card, even one that's already been played. When taken immediately, it's worth 5 points. And then if you see the Merlin says, assign any suit to any value to this card, even one that's already been played. When taken immediately, it's worth 25 injury points. So yes, you can assign them any number you want and any suit. So they can be played any time. And play out the suit. The note here too, when you play cards, if you play a card that is the same number as a previous card, those cards get canceled. So if I played like an 11 of swords, for instance, you played the Merlin and said 11 of swords, and then someone else played a 12 of swords, the 12 of swords would be the loser, because these two, the 11 and the now new 11 of swords, would cancel out, and the 12 of swords would take the trick. And that would cost him 25, 30, 35 points basically at the end of the tournament round. So it's a simple follow the suit. You have to follow suit if you can. Alchemy, down here on the bottom. Alchemy is all suits. So if you cannot follow suit, you must then play an alchemy card if you can. To follow suit. And the Sorcerer's Apprentice Merlin can be played anytime, following suit or not. The cool thing about this too is alchemy is all suits. So if you lead an alchemy card, which you can only do once you have only alchemy cards in your hand, all suits can follow that. So that's when you get a lot of that whole playing the same number and they cancel each other. Because if you lead like a high alchemy card, let's say like a 12 of alchemy, and then I play an 11 of swords and someone else plays like an 11 of deception, the 2 11s would cancel out, and then the other card would take it. So that's the basics to it. You also start with people. So you have a special person. So like let's say King Arthur here, because it's Camelot, of course, right? And he has a special ability. You can add +3 to the value of any sword weapon card that you play. So a sword, and they actually give you a little +3 token here. So, King Arthur plays in that scenario. Let's say, there's an 11 of swords. Someone plays the Merlin for an 11 of swords, and then there's a 12 of swords. And if King Arthur played the 11 of swords and he didn't want the tie, he didn't want the guy who has the 12 of swords to take the trick, because maybe that guy's almost dead, and he doesn't want him to die because he wants to win. And I'll explain that in a minute. He could add his +3 to the swords afterwards, And then what do you know? The Merlin is now the low card, and the Merlin has to take the trick. So in that example, why would you not want someone to die? Well, because you may not be winning. So when someone is reduced to 0 health at the end of a round, the game stops, and whoever has the most health left wins. So in that case, if you were King Arthur in the example I just showed you, and the person playing I played 11 of swords, the person playing the Merlin has more health than I do, I may want him to take more tricks so that way he takes more damage, so that when the other person does die, I'm going to win. Then each protagonist has a companion. So King Arthur has Excalibur, surprisingly enough. And that says, after your total injury is recorded on your health card, tally the injury you've taken from the sword cards for the turning round. Double that amount. All of your opponents must add those points to their injury total. So he can turn swords around on other people, but you can't use that until you're 200 health or less. So most of them have a companion that it kicks in at a certain health level, which is half your health, which is 200 usually. But there's people like King Arthur and Excalibur. There's the Lady of the Lake and Avalon, and there's a whole bunch of those. So you start with those. Then lastly, to add to this even more, when you get behind. So if you are in Tournament of Camelot and you are losing badly, as soon as you get 100 health behind, so let's say you're way down here at 100 and one of your enemies is up here at 300, let's just say, you get these things called Divine Intervention cards. Or not Divine Intervention, they're blessings or something along those lines. I'm not sure the exact term that they use. And these are cards that you get to play before the tournament round starts, and they give you advantages. So this one says, for instance, you always play the last card in every single melee. When you're supposed to play the lead card, you announce the suit, and the player to your left plays the first card. So you always get to play last, which can be very handy because you can see how all the cards play out, and then you can do it. And there's like Divine Intervention. After losing, tally the injury from a just played weapon cards and increase your health by that amount. So that is after a round of cards are played. So you have three people playing in our previous example. Someone plays swords, Merlin, and swords, and that's a 35-point swing, as we said before. I could spend Divine Intervention to discard those cards and add 35 to my health instead. You might do that with something where there's a high value hand, and as you can imagine, with 6 players, something like that gets even more powerful. So there's this whole pile of cards. You get 1 for every 100 you're behind the lead guy, and you take turns. So if another person is also 100 behind, whoever has the lowest health, they get 1 first, and they put out, I think there's 2 or 3 of them get put out on the table, and you get to pick which one you want, or you could take the top card. So those are kind of to help the people who are losing catch up. So that's Tournament of Camelot. Now, I haven't played it yet. However, there's Tournament of Avalon, which is a companion game, which is the same thing for the most part with different people. It looks like there are some different cards here, which I haven't seen yet. I hope to play this game tonight, for instance, but it is a companion game for Tournament of Camelot, and also made by Wizkids Games. It's also, according to the box, if you mix the 2 sets together, all the cards, you can play up to 7 or 8 players instead of the normal 3 to 6 players. So some new people. Looks like the same similar thing, right? There's like Arthur Pendragon and the sword, right? So there's more things like that. More people there. There's some new powers for when you get behind, right? They look like the backs look like the same as the other set, and immediately give to an opponent. This is the Entombed, and you cannot use your protagonist power for the next turning round. So that's pretty cool. Although the companion power is ineffective. So in that case, if they did it to me with my King Arthur, I wouldn't be able to add my +3 to a sword card. Okay, so for instance, that's those powers. Those are the ones that you get when you're losing. And then it looks like the decks are pretty much the same. Alchemy, swords, all that kind of stuff. However, we have a couple of new special cards. So there's the Apprentice Sorceress instead of the Sorcerer's Apprentice. Right? Kind of neat the way they did that, right? And you can assign it any suit and value to this card, even one that's already been played. And you see it's a poison card. Right? That's got the little poison symbol. It's got the blood. And those are worth 10 points. So similar to the other one, just a little bit different. Then there's a Morgan Le Fay card. So this one is a flip. This one says the card with the highest value loses the melee. This card's value is 1 is always in suit. So this is a flip. This is okay, all of a sudden the highest card loses, and that's also worth 25 points, which is nasty, right? And then there was one last one. So this one is interesting. The Mists of Avalon. So this one is discard the lowest value card or cards if they're tied in the melee and shame the player. So what I didn't mention before is shame is if you can't play in suit. So if someone leads swords, for instance, and you have no swords and you have no alchemy cards, so you have to play out of suit, the card doesn't count. It gets discarded and you lose 5 health immediately. So that is one of the few times that the game can stop instantly in the middle of a hand instead of waiting for the end of a hand to calculate damage. And then this card's value is 25 and is always in suit. So it's a 25 of whatever, so like 25 of swords, which, going to be really, really hard to beat that. And when it's taken, it's worth 25 injury points. So that's pretty nasty. And then there's this Merlin card. Any suit and value, even one that's already been played, and it's worth 25 points. The weird thing is, this one has a different back on it. So I'm not sure how that gets in the deck yet. Again, I haven't played this version yet. My gaming group gets together tonight. And we're hopefully going to play this because people have been wanting to play it. So I get to see how that works tonight. So very similar game. There's also these other cards which look like they are like places, and somehow they get added into the game here. I'm not sure how that works. Like I said, not sure how that works yet. But they look pretty interesting. So overall, this is it. This is Tournament at Avalon, Tournament at Camelot. Both very good games, very fun to play. They're pretty quick. Each hand takes maybe 5-10 minutes to play, and I think most games go 3-4 hands. So you're looking at probably, well, let's see what the box says. The box says a game is roughly 45 minutes. There you go. 45 minutes. That's what the box says. So so I was about right, about 45 minutes or so, 45 minutes, and you can play a game of it. It's a fun game to play. Check it out. It's made by Wizkids Games, and as always, please subscribe to my channel, like the video, make some comments if you want. I'd love to hear from people, more things that you'd like to hear about and see about, and I will have more videos coming up soon on Age of Dirt, on Three Dragon Ante, Empires, Flotilla, and Etten. All right, guys, take care. Be safe.